Yo, what up, guys? It's Kelvin again, and I was just in my zone. And today we have a very interesting series, very interesting topic to discuss about, and I've been meaning to do this. Yeah, hello, Nest. That's supposed to be hello, world. Okay, so what do we have today? We are going to be starting our backend series, and this time we are going to do it well. So what we are going to be doing is NestJS. NestJS is a Node.js framework. Node.js is a JavaScript runtime for writing backend applications. So this is the doc nestjs.com, and we can see it says it's a progressive Node.js framework for building efficient one, reliable two, and scalable server-side applications. One thing I like about NestJS is that it is very opinionated. Like, it is a very robust framework for building uh, backend applications using JavaScript. So there's every assurance that most of the things you want to do as far as backend is concerned, you can easily do them with NestJS in a well-defined pattern. All right. Like I said, it's a framework. It's built on Node. It uses Express or Fastify as an adapter. Express.js is the default adapter. So if you are familiar with Express, you're welcome. If you're not familiar with Express, you're welcome. We'll go through all the basics together, right? And the way this tutorial is going to be structured is that we are going to be strictly following the docs. So the beautiful thing I like about NestJS is that it is very extensible, right? So you have the flexibility of using any library, any backend library from NPM. So the fact that it's a framework doesn't limit you to only NestJS stuff, right? You can bring in your beautiful libraries you are used to, right? It is versatile, right? You can easily adapt it. It's a very, 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 very strong backend framework. And then it's progressive. In fact, over the years, we've seen massive improvement. And I think recently they just brought another improvement that I'm so loving. It's called SWC as the compiler. So these are just big English. We'll get into it proper, right? And it's open source. It's if you want to build an enterprise grade JavaScript backend application, this is actually like the way to go. You understand? It's just like a sample NestJS application. So the prerequisite is you need to know a bit of JavaScript, right? You need to know a bit of JavaScript. If you want a JavaScript crash course, I can do that for you. You need to know TypeScript, though it supports JavaScript without TypeScript, but it's heavily, if you want to enjoy NestJS very well, no capping, you have to just use it with TypeScript, okay? And I have a TypeScript video, it's just going to pop up and you can click on it and at least get very familiar with TypeScript. Yeah. So this is it. This is it. It's very good. So see the companies that the primary sponsors, the guys, the company sponsors, mostly they'll be using it, right? And then the partners, it's just a very, 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 very good language, okay? So the way we are going to take this series is that we are going to be using it with their documentation. So we are going to follow their official documentation. And like I said, and before you get started, you probably want to install Node.js. I assume you already have Node.js installed, but just in case you don't have Node.js installed, you want to install it. And it's a framework for Node, and I assume you should know a bit of Node, okay? Should know a bit of Node. What is Node.js? It's just is an asynchronous event-driven JavaScript runtime. It runs on the Google Chrome V8 NG. It's very, very good for building server-side application, right? And like I said, if you hear me, I said it uses Express as one of its adapter. So Express, on the other hand, is a very fast, it is unopinionated, and is very minimalist web framework for Node.js. There's a big difference here. So Express on its own is a library. It is not opinionated. So what that means is you can be writing your Express application, your own paradigm. I could be writing my own Express application, my own paradigm. Another person could be writing their own Express application, following a very different structure. And you see, that structure is what we want. That structure is what we want, and that's what we are going to get from NestJS. NestJS is going to give us like a predefined way of doing things. Now, why do we want this? We want this for maintainability. You understand? We want this to know what's going on. So if we are on a team, we actually want to have like a defined structure of how to do things, right? So you can go through the docs, just understand what's happening here. You don't need so much of these because we'll cover them in the NestJS proper. you want, if you don't have Node, you want to download Node, I probably do a video on how to probably install Node. But basically, I recommend you install the LTS version of Node, not the current. So these ones are usually, we have the experimental stuff, the latest features. But you see the LTS, these are the long-term support, right? They are the ones that are the versions of Node that they are currently the tested ones, right? You are sure not to get any surprises. So if you are Windows, you just click on the Windows installer and then you run it through. If you're Mac OS, you want to do same. Yeah, so that's it. So just a quick one. You can quickly spin up your terminal, and if you've done the Node.js installation very well, right? A simple way you can confirm is to just run this command, and then it's going to tell you which version of Node you are using. I use NVM because I want to be able to manage multiple versions of Node. If you want to see a video on that, you can let me know. So what that does is I can actually have Node 16, Node 18, Node 14, Node 12 running on the same system, and I can even configure which Node version I want per project. So if you want a video on that, you can let me know. It's called Node Version Manager. That's how I like to install my Node.js. So let's go. Let's start exploring the framework. Let's not even waste any time. So to do that, I'll just quickly go to the documentation. And yeah, I'm chatting from Nigeria. I just want to give you one quick one. If you are in Nigeria and you find out that you cannot get to this NestJS application, I think there's something wrong, especially with one particular network. I think it's Glow. You might want to just try to use a VPN. Yeah, that's what I noticed. You might want to try to use a VPN, and it's actually see what's on red. It's a scalable Node.js framework. It fully supports TypeScript. So before now, if you want to set up TypeScript on a Node.js project, it's usually a pain in the ass. You have to do a lot of stuff, and there's usually not one way of doing it, right? You understand? There's usually not one way of doing it. It combines elements from the beautiful element of object-oriented programming, functional programming, and then functional reactive programming. So what this is that here we'll be doing a lot of classes to give that structure, right? Extracting a lot away with classes. And we could also have beautiful the beautiful word of functional programming, so write functions, prototypes, and all that. And then there's what we call functional reactive programming, where you have different parts of your applications talking to each other via events, usually this is powered via ROS.js. So we'll get into all those, right? And like I said, under the hood, it makes use of robust HTTP server framework like Express, and this is usually the default, right? It's the most popular, one of the most popular library for Node. Or you can also use Fastify, right? So let's explore more before we get into it proper. So I want to go back to the NestJS websites, and you can see we can check the source code. Nothing much to do here. I just want to show you the dependencies, right? It's open source, so if you have an issue, you can probably contribute. So this is just what I want to show you. So if you see on the dependencies, you see that's building support for socket IO. See this RSJS is what's really giving you that functional reactive programming part of it, right? And I think we should see Express somewhere. Yeah, you see, has Express built-in, so you don't need to install that. And if you are a Fastify guy, see they are all there as dependencies, right? NestJS is actually heavily inspired by Angular. I did Angular a very long time. I did Angular thoroughly, so I can tell that they were heavily inspired by Angular, right? From the way they structure the code. So in NestJS, there are some concepts that are familiar. So what they've done is that they've given us this architecture where we have a modular structure. So each piece of applications are broken into modules, right? So let's have like a fictitious application. Let's say we are building a transport e-booking application for a transport company, right? So we don't want to just juxtapose all our code together. We want to have individual modules for every entity. So let's say we want to have, for a transport company, we want to have like a user module. We want to have like a drivers module. Those don't like to be called drivers. We call them captains. We want to have like a booking module. We want to have like a payment module. We want to have like that's just it. Now, what it does is that a module is just like a bus that contains some things. You get to see those things. One of those things you can see in a module is a controller. What is the controller? The controller will serve as the entry point of our application. So that's where we define our endpoints. So let's say a get user by ID, create user, delete user, update user. Those will be defined in the controllers. And then the actual business logic that would do those stuff we've defined in the controllers will be in the service. So the service is where we have the business logic, right? So NestJS will help you act with the boss to obey some of the good principles of programming like SRP, single responsibility principle, right? So a module is just going to do one particular thing. Then the controller is going to talk to the service. The service is going to have methods, stuff like that. That will just abstract that layer away from your application. And if another module needs to talk to a service, you probably want to do what we call dependency injection. Want to inject that service, right? Probably work. So you get to see all these things. You're just gonna love the structure that comes with it. Okay. I expect you've already installed Node by now. I expect you've checked it on your browser. If you've checked it on your system rather, if it's there. And when you install Node, another thing that comes with it is npm. So the Node package manager that we're going to use to install our dependencies and all that. Right? Great. And your Node, please make sure it's at least above 16. Right? I try to use the base, but it should be greater than 16. Okay. You want to install NestJS globally with npm. You want to run this command. Bring by the terminal. Your first time. This is something you do once in your NestJS journey. Once in your NestJS journey, you're just going to hit this, and then it's going to give you the latest version of NestJS. I already have it installed, right? So I just want to do it again for your guys' sake. So let's let that run. It's going to take some time. It's a network request. I'm probably just going to skip to when we are done, okay? All right, it looks like we are almost done. Oh, RSJS, yeah, that's going to give us that reactive programming. So yeah, it has added 15 packages. Yeah, I just bumped it up. So to check, we can simply do same thing, nest-v. And yeah, we are on the latest version 10. This is where they brought in SWC, and we're going to use it in this project. Not really for writing your code. It's going to be for developer experience, right? So it's going to help us with very fast build time. So by default, NestJS usually would use Webpack, but with SWC, it's a Rust-based compiler. It's the latest big boy in town. It's usually 20 times faster than Babel. So yeah, NestJS compiles Babel, but SWC is usually 20 times faster. To get a new NestJS project, now you have NestJS installed globally, and you've confirmed with that version flag I just gave you. We are getting to the form partner. So you want to say nest new, and then you want to give the project a name. So I'm just going to say, what am I going to say now? Let's say nest intro. By the way, I'm going to create a repo for this and leave it there. So when you run this command, it's going to walk you through the installer. It's going to tell you which package manager do you want to use, would you love to use, right? It's very flexible, right? You use yarn, you use npm, pnpm, your choice. I'm just going to go with the default npm because I know maybe you don't have yarn, so no need to install yarn. Like I said, if you install Node correctly, you definitely have npm, but if you want yarn, is an extra step. Yarn is just npm is the default for Node. It's pretty much good. It's nice. I love it. Yarn is also nice. Is from Facebook. It's called Yet Another Resource Negotiator. That's its specs, right? I love npm also. Click on it, and let's see. So what it's doing is it's created yeah, we are there. So when you see this, then we are in a groove. I'm just going to clear this. I'm going to seed into, what did you call it? Then I'm going to open this up on VS Code. Let's walk through this. Node modules, we all know this. This is where we have all the bag of all the applications we are relying on. Then we have a test folder. We have an SRC folder. Then we have some folders on the root of our application. So we are just going to go through this. ESLint. So these are basic linting rules that NestJS relies on. It just helps us with linting. It comes with linting out of the box. You don't have to worry about this, right? So yeah, these are some of the nice rules. I might probably add some of these, but the defaults are just fine. The defaults are just fine. Git ignore, so we've ignored a lot of stuff. We don't want node modules to be going. We don't want dist. So because when we build our project, it's going to run on a dist folder. NestJS is not going to run the TypeScript, right? So it's going to create a dist folder even while we are running on local development, and that's going to contain the JavaScript equivalent of our code. Sorry, it's going to contain the JavaScript equivalent of our code, and that's where it's going to run And then we have a prettier RC file. Just gonna see if I can bring in my own prettier config. I'm cool with this. Yeah, these are my file. If you wonder how I got that, I already have a shortcut. So I just type in prettier and then it breaks this up. And we are specifying the default option so we can do more compilation here, right? We can tell Nest how to do stuff. So see where we are saying the root of our, we are going to be getting the schematics from NestJS. So it's going to help us with our linting and all that. We're going to follow the NestJS rules. And then the root of our application is where we are going to have our main applications building block. Is going to be in our SRC, right? And then when we are compiling, we said that we can configure some of our compiler options. So when we build the application, when we are compiling, we want to first of all delete the output directory and then have a new gist directory. So that those are all there. The default are just fine. We don't need to go here too much. But I know in the course of this journey we'll have reasons to visit this place. Package log.json just maps our dependencies, right? Gives us our dependency graph and then to their own dependencies and all that. Just going to give like a mapping. We don't need to bother about that. And for packages, we're going to see this is gives us the name, the version we are currently on. Then we just let's add this an introductory NestJS, right? I'm using a Copilot. I can have this here. Okay, private, not true, not true. I'm going to make this public and then I'm going to use MIT as my license. And we have pretty much different script. We have build script, we have start script, we have start and then watch. So when we start, it's not going to be watch. So when we make changes in our code, it's not going to pick up this changes. But usually when you are developing, you want to say start dev, right? So usually when we build the project, we want to start it on the server. But when we are developing, we want to use start dev. And what that is while we are writing code, any changes we are going to be making is going to be rebuilding under the hood. I suspect it's using Node Mono. So if you use Express, you understand that you have to install those libraries separately to do that. So you have to install Node Mono and all that. But this just comes, okay? If you don't want to write command, you can just come and click any of these. I love this. It makes it look like very, very robust IDE. You can also force it with Yarn. So if it was Yarn, you have to start prefacing all your commands with Yarn, right? And then when you say start production, it's going to just run Node of that dist folder. So, on production, we might not want to bundle in NestJS along with it. So we've built the project, right? We've have the output directory. So when we just call start, but it's going to use the default node on our deployment platform. Maybe we are deploying on Render, we are deploying on AWS, and then it's just going to run off the raw JavaScript, right? And then when we want to lint our code, we can run lint, we can run tests, can check we can run tests on watch mode. So while we make changes and our tests keep running, we can check our test coverage. We can run all our E2E tests. And these are the default dependencies that NestJS comes with. There are more, but these are the default. So we want those common stuff that's come from NestJS. We want core, and then like I said, it uses the default express, right? Reflect metadata is usually maybe for NestJS and stuff. We're going to use them. RSJS, right? If we want to start writing reactive programming, we're going to go deep dive into it. And the dev dependencies, these are not going to be bundled along with the application. These are just for developer experience. So the types for Express. So what is a request in Express? What is a response in Express? All those stuff we're going to get from the types. What are all the types from Node? Let's say we import the crypto library from Node. What are the methods that are there? So we have those types. We don't need to install these individually. We could have done this ourselves. Prettier, everything is just bundled up. And that is really what is going on. The TypeScript configurations file. We could have done this ourselves, or we could have run TSC in it, but that's done this for us, right? And our target is ES2021, source map true. Our output directory is going to be a dist, our base URL, just the very beginning. We don't have a subpart. Incremental fine. Skip live check. We don't want to check our we don't want to run type check on our node modules, right? Strict not check. I'm just going to say true. I like this to be true. No implicit any. I'm going to say true. I don't like any's in my code. Yeah, I like to be okay. It's fine. So I'm just gonna. I don't like false consistent casing in file names. Yes, true. If you don't like it, turn it off. We can leave that. Sometimes I don't like I like my file names to be camel case, but maybe for constant I like to vary a bit. So no for truths cases in switch. You want to say for. So what that means is, let's say we have a switch case. I'm just going to, this is wrong. I'm not supposed to do this here. So what that is we have this. I like to explain everything. Sorry. Let's say we have a simple switch statement. Where can I show you that? We don't want, these are just LinkedIn rules, right? I'm just going to look for one JavaScript file now and show you. So let's say we have a switch case, switch, let's say true. We don't want to have some stuff like this. Let's say we have a case one, and you see we can do like a case two. So that's what we call for true. I do this, and it's valid JavaScript, so it's fine. We're just going to leave that. So like I said, the defaults are very fine. Okay, so I'm going to close this up. I don't want to save. Did I just discard my changes? It's fine. It's fine. Don't worry. That's not the bone of the matter. So on our main.ts, what are we doing? We just have an asynchronous function that bootstrap our application. And then it creates a new app. It waits for the next factory and then creates this app. But what it does is it passes in the app module into it. And then it listens on port 3000. This is the default port for NestJS. Port 3000. So I'm just going to refactor that. I'm going to extract this to a constant. I'm going to call it ports. Okay, fine. Cut that. Just nothing special. Just same thing. And if we want to check now, this is our app mode. This is where we are bringing in all our applications. So we can simply go into that. And on this app module, this is the pattern we're going to follow. It's just exporting a class. And this class is using a decorator module from NestJS common. We are not importing anything yet because actually we import, if we have other modules, we import them here. We don't have any other modules now, so we are not importing anything yet. We have a simple app controller. Like I said, we'll go into that. So we'll specify all, so usually all the controllers we have for that module, we are going to specify them here. Usually you would want to have one controller per module, one service per module, but sometimes it can be more. And if we check that controller, so like I said, the method, the module, we are just exporting that app module, and that's what we are going to ingest into the main.ts. So this file is going to grow pretty large. I know the import is going to grow pretty large because all other modules we have, like our user module, every other module we have, they are going to be coming here, right? We're going to be importing them here, and just this one we are going to import into main.ts, right? So we have this test suite. Honestly, we are not going to be doing testing now, but let's leave the default for now and let's see how it works. So let's go to the controller, and because it's all linked together, I can hold command on Mac or control and then click on it, and then I can get there. And this is a class, right? Like I said, it's just a class. All what we've covered, we are seeing them now in action, right? And what we are doing here is we are injecting the app service. We'll see what that is right now. And how do we work here? So we want to have a decorator for all our controllers, right? And then this is going to be so this has marked this as a controller. This is going to be our entry point of our application. So you see, this is the very first entry point of our application. If we run this now, localhost 3000, we're definitely going to have like a get. So when we want to have method get, post, push, part, these are all going to be decorators, and they're going to be coming from NestJS common. And then we have method. This name is really not, can just be anything, right? It can be anything, just a function, right? And then we'll return something. Anything we return automatically, this is the payload that the user is going to get, right? And we don't even need to specify. TypeScript can also infer. So if we over this, it's going to be a string, because I like to rely on inference a lot. I don't like this explicitly identifying stuff. So this controller, I'm just going to comment this out for now. But usually we can return, say, hello world. Yeah, that's it. That's fine. So we have a basic API that does return hello world, right? But the truth is, we don't want to write everything in our controller. That's why I'm saying NestJS is going to teach us best practices out of the box, right? Just like Angular. So we want to have a controller that tells us we can easily see all our endpoints on the controller, but then we want to actually do the business logic in the service. So each service is going to handle the business logic. So I'm just going to let's leave that for now, but you see it in action. So we can go into the service, and we can also click on this, and yeah, we have just, like I said, a method, and then it returns hello world. All right, good. So to get this up and running, we are going to say, going to close this. We're going to say npm run start dev. And if you're using npm, you can easily still come here and then just click on this, right? So we can't just say npm run start now because we don't have a dist folder yet. We have to build before we start. But because we're on development mode, we can say npm run start dev. And what this done is going to start our application on watch mode. And immediately this starts, let's see, it's taking some time, it's taking some time, it's taking some time, it's taking some time, it's taking some time. Cool. Okay, I have a, it's coming, it's bringing my debugger because I have my application, I have my VS Code to automatically attach to debugger. Let me see, debugger. Okay, I'm going to turn this. So I have it on smart, so it always attached, and then I have to disable it. So you can do that. How did I go there? I just press Ctrl Shift P and all that. So now we have our application is running, and see what it's saying. It said starting NestJS application, very nice. App modules has been initialized, all the dependencies, and then we have just one controller, which is just the default controller. It took 38 milliseconds, and we have a route on that very entry point. So localhost 3000 is going to give us what we have. We can simply go to localhost 3000, and yeah, we see we have hello, and yeah, it's just going to return it to the user. That's it. I'm going to stop this. Let me stop this. Let me say only when I pass the flag. Yeah, only when I pass the space flag. So if I run this, same thing. Hello world. Boring, right? I can actually, let's get started. Let's say get user. I just want to get started with this app service, but we are going to start by creating our own very soon. Let's say ID. Let's just have a fictitious ID one named do. I love user so much. Okay, and like I said, anything you return from there is just gonna get returned to the user as simple JSON. And yeah, we have it. We've started writing our API. This is very impressive, right? All right, so let's get started. Like I said, we are on the latest version of NestJS, and it's pretty much fast. We don't have so much yet, but I just want to bring in some of the goodies of NestJS 10. So let's bring in SWC. So for us to bring in SWC, it's optional, right? I want us to do this. We're going to install it as a dev dependency because it's going to make this application faster. And I know this is an application that we are going to be building on a lot. So when I'm less busy, I want to burn out stress, I'll make more NestJS content. So what I want to do is, for an existing project, you can just install this, makes it way faster for compilation, and even runtime just makes it a whole lot faster, right? So what does it do? It's used for both compilation and bundling. So we want to bundle our application, want to compile our application, makes it faster, which is what I want, right? So I just do that, install it, and after we install it, we can actually run our NestJS start by passing a .b flag swec, or we can say that .b is just an alias for builder. If you have a monorepo, we don't have a monorepo yet. So what a monorepo is we can have one NestJS application, one NestJS project with different applications inside. We can get into all those nice stuff. But I'm just going to say every time I want to build my application with swec, okay? So I can specify this in the compiler option. So now we are getting into the NestJS CLI. So swec has been successfully installed. We can check our dependencies, so we can see yeah, swec CLI, swec core, and so now we can specify and say the JSON. So I can say swec, right? Oh, sorry, what did I say? Builder. Oh, sorry. Funny me. You see, nobody's above mistakes, right? And I saw that on the doc, right? It's always good to go back to the doc because you never can tell. One day your mind could just be like, oh no, I'm not with you today. I want to do mine. And if we run this as before, you might not notice it now because it's a fairly small project, but you see it's running, and yeah, it's very noticeable. You see we're having 30 something, 40 something and all that, but you see how noticeably faster it becomes. And this would grow exponentially as the project increases, right? But one thing to note is that swec doesn't do type checking. So you get, it's just going to try to load up the application, right? So I actually want to make sure it does type checking in tandem while running the build, right? So I'm just going to look for that. We can actually say SWC and then type check, but I don't want that. I want that to be my default. So I'm just going to add type check through. And this is like the last configuration we're going to do for today. Good. So we do that again now. It's going to actually make sure it does type checking for us. It might be a bit slower, but yeah, we still even faster, right? But this time it's going to make sure it checks the types, and if there are issues, it's going to fail and all that. Yeah, we want that. We want all those goodies. One last thing, let's run our test suite. We just have one test suite, one basic test suite. I just want to show you it's running, but testing is a whole lot game on its own, and we are going to cover that on a separate video, right? So I can run npm run test. What's going to happen? And it's going to run our test suite. It's going to run it. We didn't have to do so much. We didn't have to configure separately. What's it saying? It says it's failing, right? We are expecting hello world, but now we are getting an object, right? So let me just make that test pass. So I'm just going to actually return hello world with the exclamation mark, right? So see our test case are running. It says our unit test running should return hello world. So that's what we've asserted. So the way it works is we get an instance of our app controller, um, and we before each test run we describe what we are trying to test. We are testing app controller. We can test our app service, and we do those stuff. We get the testing module, we create the testing module, we pass in our controllers, our providers, and then we compile it, and then we get access to the app controller, and then we can describe what we want to test, right? And then we describe, we just give us like a block for each of our tests, and then we say it should return hello world, and then we want to check if that's definitely when we call get hello, is it actually hello world. We can test our controllers, we can test our services. Usually I like to test the services, or most times it's the controllers are what we are exposing to the users, right? So we want to test the controllers, okay? So now if we run this test case, it's gonna work now. It's gonna pass because yeah, we're running the right thing. So just see something. I just want us to take these basics very well. If I were to delete some of these and save, it's not going to tell us because we just run our tests once. So we can actually run our test on watch mode, okay? So that will be us doing npm run test, and then we can say watch. So it's going to be watching for changes. So first things, it's going to run it, and it's running. It's going to definitely fail. It's going to fail, and then I can say this, and immediately I save. Beautiful. It's going to rerun the test case again and all that. So that's this. We didn't have to set all this up, right? If you were going to set this up, you would know what you would understand. You would understand why you should love NestJS. Then we can run all our test coverage and see how our application is doing, how much we have. These, like I said, they just work out of the box, right? We have one controller, we have one method. Test coverage is going to be pretty lit, 100%, right? Very, very fine. So that's it for now. So I'm just going to let's go into it properly. I want to delete everything, and I want us to build a, oh no, did I just delete the app module? It's fine, we're going to build it back. We're going to build it back. So I want us to build everything from scratch, right? And okay, we're going to start it up. I just deleted the app module, but I'm going to bring, and oh, by the way, I didn't even tell us, it created it created a initialized git for us, right? So we already have git initialized for us, and yeah, we can just start. We can just add our origin URL, and then we can push our code. Okay, module.ts. By the way, you like these beautiful icons I have on my code? It's coming from an extension. So what are we trying to do? We're going to export a class called app module. Okay, and we're going to say at module. Okay, that's coming from nestjs.com on. And then we can import stuff, can have controllers, can have providers. That's what we can have now. But this time I don't want to have let's do create read, update, delete 4 endpoints in memory. All right. To do that, let's start with the basic folder and say users or user, your choice. And then the first thing I want to create is the entry point with the module. So let's create a user.module.ts. Same thing, we're just going to export a class of user module. It's not yet a module yet actually, because we have to decorate it with at module. No, at module. Am I spelling that correctly? Yeah, module. Okay. Okay. Now we want to create our entry points for application. So we want a controller. I'm going to create a user.controller.ts. Same thing, I just want to export a class user controller. Like I said, the fact that you called it a controller doesn't mean it's a controller yet. So you have to decorate it with a controller. Okay. And we want to come here and say we have a list of controllers for this user module. One of them is the user controller. And it imports it, right? You can have aliases if you want. Good. We've still not finished this. Now, what does this mean? We could have a constructor, but not yet. And then we could have a simple method and say that says, what's the first thing we want to do? Create a user, right? Then we can say, yeah, let's test this out. Let's just return something and say this action adds a new user. That's fine. But if we were to run this now, it's not going to work yet. I know. Let's see what happens. What happens? Running type check. Fine. But you can see we don't have any endpoints yet. Oh, wow. But I thought we just created a controller. If we hit this now, that's going to be, cannot get anything. We don't have any endpoint. But yeah, we just created a user controller. That's because everything is bundled first in user module. But we have to bring this user module into app module, okay? So I can come here now and import this. And truthfully, we don't even need this. And if we save this now, we'll see that, okay, now, what's the problem? Cannot find one. User module. Oh, looks sad. Why? Anybody know why? Because we have this. We have this. We need to decorate this with get. Then we can import this from NestJS. It's common. SWC has started. Don't worry, we'll get this done. Just watch one thing. Watch one thing. We're gonna do it. I want to disable SWC first. And let's see if this works. This was like, I think this was like the first gotcha I got when I started using SWC. It was very funny. See, now it works, right? Now it works. What was the problem? Because of the way we are referencing user module, okay? So I'm going to help us. We're going to use we're going to do an alias. So what was happening is SWC, I kind of found out that it doesn't know how to pick up relative part or absolute part. So I think when I had that issue, I was pretty sad because I really wanted to enjoy SWC, but I started having that issue, right? So, but what I did was I went to the TS config, and then I added an alias. If your project is already heavy, you can actually just have that as the alias, right? can have that src star as the alias, but I'm just going to make it this looks pretty neat. And I'm just going to try it again. So let's see where we can import user module from. Let's see if, yeah, so if we run this again now, yeah, see, it works. So that's what no, cool. Yeah, so yeah, it's not complaining about the controller, right? So like I said before, we could actually even use so let me really explain this for you very well. So if we didn't want to do this, we'd have to use relative paths. Okay, if we didn't want to do this, let's get this done so you don't have these issues. Let's have the issues now, and I'm going to try this again, and let's see how we can actually import this. So if I were to do this, it's not going to complain about user module. I used to complaining of that. Just these were the things I have. Delete, run. Let's resolve this. But I'm gonna help us with the alias guy. So you cannot find controller. So I'm gonna go into user module and I'm gonna actually just do C. I'm just gonna reference it directly because yeah, we already want for that deep. And yeah, it should get up and running, right? Yeah. So this is how it works. SWC. Just be very careful for that part. But I love to just have alias. I love to do, I don't like relative import so much because from experience, you can get that. So I can use aliases. So I'm always referring to, always in a consistent manner, I'm importing my stuff, right? So I'm just going to do this. Yeah, so I can always, I just know that from the SRC, I can go to user module. And if I go into the controller also, the user module also, I can do the same. Let's see. See if gonna fail. Yeah, that's because this it's not deleting this SWC so fast. I know that's one way they've optimized the speed. It's not deleting this. I will still help us with something that does that. In case if you run into such issues, you might almost run crazy. Like, why is it not working? It's because it's not rebuilding, it's not deleting and rebuilding the application, right? It's trying kind of maybe doing some caching or something. If you don't want to go through that stress, right? What I usually recommend is whenever you run start dev, start dev, you may want to delete the dist folder and then rebuild it. So I can think that we can use a rim raf dist, and then that's just the command. I think it works on Mac. So let's see what it does. So if I go back and run this, it's going to delete the dist folder and then it's going to, yeah, so you would always be sure that yeah, it's building well, so you don't keep saving and saving and there you don't see your changes reflecting, right? So we've tested our input. This is a pretty long video, but I just wanted to cover everything so you don't have those issues, right? And like I said, if it was a pretty large project that you've already used absolute parts, nothing to freak about, just go to your TS config and then if whatever you've been using, it could be SRC, just make this SRC and you should be fine with SWC. That shouldn't discourage you from using SWC. I don't know why they didn't specify that in the docs very well, but I had that issue and I've solved it, so you don't have to bother about it. All right. So, truth be told, we don't want to do everything in our control. Like I said, we want to have SRP single responsibility for everything. So let's create a user service TS, and I'm just going to be very fast. Let's create all our controllers. So first things first, let's create our controllers. Now you see, notice something on Postman. It's my Postman. On Postman, I was assessing it on the default lab, but I actually want to be very specific for my APIs. I want to say this is going to be a local host / users, and now it doesn't have any users. So what I can simply do is on my code, I can come to this controller. I can do it here for each and every one of them, right? I can do this, users. I can do this, and now it's going to map that. right? We're going to test it again. Postman. Okay, works. How do you tap? Good. Well, actually, what I want to do, that means I'll have to be very specific for each endpoint I'm going to write, but I'm going to just do it for all of them. All right. You don't even need the slash if you want to. And you can do this. It's going to be user slash get. You get the logic, right? So this is going to be a localhost slash users. You don't even need to specify the slash, right? And because it's just the way, you don't even need to specify this. So this is going to help us create a new user. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a new service. User service, right? And like I said, gotcha, this is not going to work so well until you add injectable. Okay, so let's just have an array. It is an in-memory array, just going to have a list of user. Okay, I didn't have to use constant there. And let's say create user. It's going to take in a user, and it's just going to push it in. Probably before pushing it in, I'm just going to give it an ID. So let's give it a unique ID. Okay, let's start with 1. And I'm going to spread in everything we have from. So yeah, we said we are not going to have a explicit end, so we have to specify our type for our user. Let's say our user is going to have a first name and last name. Just one minute. Yeah. Now it's also complaining that, oh, we didn't define the type for our users before, right? Now we are doing that. So what I'm going to do is on the roots, I want to have like a common folder. Usually my convention. I I usually preface it with an underscore so that it's always at the top. So everything that's going to be specific to the whole application, right? I'm just going to throw them here. And I want to bring in an interface. Actually, you can also do this for each of the users. So actually, I'm just going to do that, right? It's just a thing. Depend if it's going to be for all modules. So this is a module, right? This is a user module. I like to show them in the common module. But since this is specific to a user, I'm just going to bring this here. So I'm going to say user.interface.ts. Then I'm just going to specify an interface. Now we can use a type user. Let me just kill this first. When we are ready, we'll go to the browser. We'll go there. We can use a type, right? And you can say user is going to have an ID. Use a type string, first name, last name, then created art, that's the date. And I can come here and say, now we can see our user is going to be of type array of user. I like to be very explicit, right? And then we can import this, right? And now we can pass in user, but it's complaining that the user is already having an ID. So what can I do? I can actually do a create user, or I can just use a helper here. So by default, the user would not have an ID. This is TypeScript. By the way, if you have an issue with this, you can go to my TypeScript course. So yeah, I'm going to say this is going to be a user. It doesn't have an ID by default. Or you can even do it here. Let's do a export type of create user, and then this is going to be this. Well, we are writing class, right? So to make everything a bit more like less brain fog on our head, we are already going to be writing class. We're going to be using extend and all that. I find interface more intuitive, right? For while working on the class before. There are not so much difference, though there's a major difference between types and interfaces, right? If you want to know some of the difference, I can tell you that would have a separate video for that. So I would like to make this an interface, right? And then this is just going to be Yeah, so pretty much the same thing, right? I just like to make this. I just like to make this an interface. It looks more. It blends in more with the class OOP we're writing, right? All right, we're writing React, which is pure functional programming. I would be using types. That's my logic behind it. There are some specific use cases where you have to use types. There are some specific stuff where we have a users. For example, I can do a cascade. I can also have another interface user. And then I can add more property and say, let's say, updated add this not for. So what happens is our user is going to be cascaded, and everything user, so both ID, first name, last name created, that's going to be on this user because they are having the same name. That's one unique difference between a user and a type. You can't do this for type. Like they'll clash. You have to use like an and all that. Okay, so if you want to know more some of the differences, just let me know. How you make this decision is up to you. You can decide to use a type. But like I said, the logic and my reasoning behind this is we are on the back end and we are going to be doing heavy OOP. Yeah. So it looks more succinct, right? It blends more. This interface pattern just blends more. So yeah. So now we can go back and say this is going to be a create user. Your choice. And you can be very like, oh, this is two variables and all that. You can do user array. Your choice. It's supposed to be like a random ID. Then I can call it. Cool. And then, so these are create endpoint, right? For now, we don't have a database, so everything is going to be in memory. We can test this out. All right. And we've done for create user. So let's, ideally, immediately we do this. What would we want to do? We want to return back the user. I'm just going to extract this. The constant, say new user. Then I'm going to push it in. Then I'm going to return new user. Cool. So if we go back to our controller, watch. I know I'm making a mistake. I've not brought in injectable, but I just want us to let's fail together now because when we come back to this class, I'm going to be running on light speed, right? Now we can inject our service and say private read only user service, and then I can say user service dot create. And then I can pass in the body, right? But actually, what happened? We want to get the body from the outside world, right? So that leaves us with how do we get the body? How do we get the body? So what we can do is let's finish the setup. We're gonna do that. I can go to user module now, and then I can say providers. So that a user service is going to be a provider. Then I'm going to do this user service. No, not user service. Cool. Still have an error. Means we need to provide a body. So actually, the created at I'm not going to pass it from outside. I'm just going to say created at is going to be new date, right? Yeah, and on create user, I'm going to omit that and also created that. Yeah, so that's fine. So it wants us to pass what? It wants us to parse first name and last name. So I'm just going to say first name, okay, John. Cool. Now this looks fine, but I know we've done some NestJS braha, NestJS blunders. So let's see. Let's run this. What's happening? What's happening? What's happening? What's happening? Looks like it's working. Looks like it's working. Looks like it's working. So let's run that. Let's try. Let's see. So that's a get request. Oh my people. So we want a post. So we can get a post. Okay. Yeah, we want a post. So that. So let's try that. And it works, yeah. But the thing about injectable is that why we need it for service, that when we want to use the service on our other modules, right, we will need that. So, but to be safe, just throw it in here, because you will run into problem when you try to use this user service on other modules. Yeah. So yeah. So guys, looks very basic, right? But this is not the best we can do. We will actually need this payload to come from the aside word, right? So how do I do this? So what we can do is we can bring in body here, and then we say this is body. And for now, we can't force the user on what to bring, but let's just say this is going to be a create user for a start. And then we can pass in that into here, right? Good. And if we go back, so this body, it's just like a helper. It's going to destructure it from Express, right? So the request.body and all that, you can get access to it, right? So this is just a very nice way of getting it. And if we go back to Postman, so what that means is we can actually, we're going to make this full screen also. You can actually pass in raw JSON. Then we can pass in first name, and then if we try this, see, it looks like it works, but we know that's not correct, right? We need to pass in the last name. Now you see how beautiful we can do these validations at the DTO level later. So, but let's just go. We're taking time to make sure we explain the basics so that when we start running, we understand. Now you see it works. We created a user. So I'm just going to build all the endpoints, and then you see how I was able to create a user without the last name, which sometimes we might not want. So we'll go into another concept for validations, and that's what we are going to be using DTOs, data transfer objects, right? Different from interfaces, because that's actually going to do validation before it gets into the controller properly. So if we've done that, we can actually do a get, right? And then say get users. For this one, we don't want to pass in, we don't want any params, whatever. We are going to import this. I'm just going to create get all users. We're going to call it get users. Then I'm just going to do this. Then I can just click on this bulb and say declare the method. Then I'm just going to declare the method. Then I have the method, and then I'm just going to come down. Then I can just simply return is.users, okay? And we have the second endpoint. Writing APIs is just a breeze. Save it to this collection. We'll call this create user. We still have the node running, right? So I'm going to create another user and say turning stack. Actually, I could have been using a movie character. Now you see we have an array of users. Beautiful. We have this, it looks like it's being persisted, but it's not. It's because the server is still running, so it's being persisted in memory, right? If we were to restart the server, we'll lose all our users. But you see, when we want to persist our user, we have to bring in a database or some form of persistent storage. So we are doing create, we've done read. Let's do one more read. So that will be, let's do a get user by ID. Simply we'll still have this, but now it's going to clash. So both names cannot be the same, but don't be confused. This and this don't have to be the same. Okay. So I'm going to call this get user by ID. I'm going to say get user by ID, and then we're going to get the ID from here, and then we can use our param, the corrector, and then get the ID. Then we can pass that ID here. Okay. And if I were to declare this method like that a lot, these are our public method. Then we can simply just say constant. It's going to find that user, and if there is no user, I can simply throw. Actually, I'll be very specific. To me, throw HTTP not throw a not found. Throw a not found exception. Say is that with that ID not found? Yeah, new exception. Yeah. Otherwise, just return this. It's going to know which you're not going to bother yourself about the appropriate HTTP code to throw. It's going to do that for you. And before we even go back to Postman, I guess I'll just write all the APIs, and let's have one for update user by ID. So that will be patch call. We're going to have the ID, then we're going to have update user by ID. So see what we've done here. You are used to this now. So like I said, I'm going to be very fast now. And we destructure the ID we want, and then it's going to be of type, or is it create user? No. So it's going to be of type. I'm just going to do another one. Export interface, update user. Yeah. Extend partial create user. Right. Cool. More like it. Yeah. And then this method, I can easily declare it, and I can go into it, and then I need to import this. Cool. And then I want to first of all say constant user is equals to this dot get user by ID, and that's going to take care of the case whereby this. If there's no user, it's going to take care of that case. And then we're going to say whatever we have on user, and then whatever we have on the body, right? And then we'll call this updated user. Okay. Now what do we want to do now? Because we are in memory, right? So we've gotten that user by ID. So we want to update our user we want to update back this our users array, right? We can do it with a map. I think we can do it with a map. We can do it with so many. We can even get a okay. So yeah, so what we've done is we've mapped through our users, and then we are saying I just wanted we could actually just, this is redundant, right? We could actually just get access to our user method, and then we can use the index to just update it. But I want that validation of when there's no user, just throw a not found error. So that's why I'm calling this method. And then I spread in what we have, and then what we had before and what we have here. And then I'm just saying go through all our users array, and then if this our user is equals to the ID, just return the updated user, otherwise return the user. And we want to usually return back to the user the updated user. Okay. So let's see what's it saying. It needs to import this. So how many APIs do we have now? And we have done create, read, update. And I'm going to do a delete. We want to delete by ID. Then we need to import this from the same place. So say delete. Yeah, I just want this to come up. Then we have service. Like I said, the service just handles the business logic. Okay. And I've created a method. Did I? No, not delete user by ID. And I'm going to declare that method. No, I'm going to declare method. Okay. And honestly, I don't even like those repeated name, delete user by ID. We are already in a user class, so I could just, normal me, I would say delete by ID. And I can even, first of all, get that user. And that will take care of the case of whereby the user exists. And then I can filter the user, and I can return what was deleted. Okay, cool. Now we have a create, read, update, delete endpoint. I think this is a good place to wrap up the video, but before we do that, let's test. If I call get all users, it sees empty, right? We restarted the server 1001 times. I'm going to create one user. I'm going to create another one and say I have issues coming up with names. Kevin, as usual, is the right person. I'm going to say, let's not be gender biased. Let's say, which Mr. Raboni. Raboni Stencil. That made me laugh. That's the best female name I can come up with. Oh God, sad. So we can say get all users. I'm just gonna duplicate this. Say get user by ID, and this time we need to pass in an ID. So let's see if we can get 20. So if we pass this in, yeah, we got that user. So which other endpoint did we have? We had a update user. So I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna say that was Ctrl D, right? Command D, update user by ID, and this is gonna be a path call. We have to specify the ID, and along with that, we have to specify the properties we are gonna update. Let's say we're just gonna update the last name to crayon. Why did that come up? I'm doing it on the wrong one. Okay. None. This one actually. See, weird. Yeah. Okay. So body raw JSON beautify. So who am I updating? We need to pass in the ID as well as the body, right? And if we do this, yeah. No, did it update? Didn't. Okay. What's wrong? Oh yeah, this is the get call. This one is the patch call. Cool. UI patch call Postman. Yeah, see it updates, right? Updated. And for the last one, let's have it delete user by ID. And the fact that we've updated our users, so Tony, if we check, it's gonna be Tony Crayon, right? And we still have Sister Abuni. I'm not gonna delete the lady for you guys. Says gender bias. I'm gonna delete Kelvin, right? Delete that. And this is actually a delete call. We can pass in the ID. And yeah, return back what was deleted. Weird. Yeah, Kevin Stack, yeah, correct. So before we had 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Oh, okay. I know why. So these dot users equals to going to filter. I've updated our users in memory. So this delete call, I guess, let's see why didn't that work. Let's see. Don't need this. So if we delete that, shows that it's deleted. Oh, we need to delete this. I get why. It's still, it assumes that so we updated the user in memory. This dot users. We'll check why it's not working, but you know, like I said, we have everything in memory. So this is delete call, returns the user, it finds it. Let's even see. What if we try to let's test some other things and see. What if we try to get a user that does not exist? yeah, it gives us the right status code because we threw that exception, right? I know why. That has to do with some memory reference stuff, why it's not working. So what if I try to delete a user that does not exist? Say it's not foreign, then this user exists. So if I try to delete that, it's supposed to work. Yeah, it says Tony Crayon has been deleted, right? But if we get it, it's still there. Yeah, I know what's going on. I'm just gonna say that is going to be users.filter. Um, it's not updating it in memory. Okay. You know what? I'm just gonna I'm gonna get, because we are working in memory. If we had to be working with database, that would be fine. But let's make it work. Let's make it work. We need an access to that index. So I'm gonna say user index. I'm gonna say define index, and if found index, I'm gonna delete by memory. You know it's in memory, right? So say user with ID does not exist. Otherwise, we want to say no. We want to splice. Right? Yeah. Then so I just return the message that says user has been deleted. I think this should work now. Okay. Just user the splice. So that's when they say we splice, it removes the element from the array. Okay. So let's see. Let's see if this works now. Let's see if we get all our users. Let's create a new user. Yeah. And then let's delete that user. Let's delete. Let's get all users back. Oh wow. It's weird. Weird. This is weird. That's because we have this stuff in memory and I just don't know how to demo this now. How can I forcefully delete this user? See. So what should I, how should that work? No, it's not gonna work. So this is gonna be a delete call, right? Then passing the ID. It's passing the ID. Let's see. So what our problem here is we have that guy in memory and that's usually an issue. That's just an issue. I'm not even going to sweat it. When we bring in persistent story, then we'll know if it will actually delete or not. Let's get all users first. These are user. Let's see if we can call this. It has been deleted. Yeah, so now it works. So yeah. So this is a basic create, read, update, delete endpoint we've worked on, and we should go back to the docs.nestjs. So we should go back to the docs and let's see what we've covered today. It was a nice one. Even with the small application we built, we still had a bug. That's why it's good to debug. So I think next class would see how to debug. So we can go through, see what we've covered. So we've covered controllers, how they work, and I think we covered first step. We installed NestJS globally. We went through the file structure. We also We also talked about how it uses Express by default, and we see how we started playing with those stuff. We talked about how we created the app, we got an instance to the app, and we told you it's going to run on 3000 by default. You can change that port. That's ESLint and Prettier. We ran the test suite, went into controllers. We talked about the basic type of controllers. The only thing we didn't cover was the validation. So I'm going to bring that in the next class. So the next class, we're going to talk about how we could actually validate what's coming from the user. And we'll do that with DTOs, data transfer objects, and it's very neat with NestJS. So yeah, so these are some of the basics we covered. We covered how to get the body. We covered that. We didn't cover query. We don't need those yet when we are doing setting, but it's just similar. The same thing. We can get body. We can get query. We can get headers. We can set those. We've pretty much covered some of them. These are wildcard routes. I don't know why you need that, but if you need that, yeah, you can have wildcard routes. Status code, like I said, if you use the right, you can annotate each API with a status code and it's going to work. But if you write your code very well, you throw the right error. You see where we didn't find a user, we throw a new not found error and all that. You actually get a very good status code, the correct status code, right? Yeah. So that's where we are going to end today's class. And I hope you learned a thing or two. At least you can take away how to bring in SWC into your NestJS project and potential issues you might run into with that absolute import or relative import. So don't freak out when you do that. You just see how we resolved it. So yeah, it's a nice one. See you in the next class. We'll make sure we go through all this in details. We'll look for a very good app to create. Love you guys.